Found out my husband was cheating with my sister, divorced him, and went no contact with my toxic family. Years later, just when I thought I had finally reclaimed my life, fate delivered a stunning twist, one that opened the door to true happiness, unyielding independence, and a future I never imagined. I'm married to my husband, Ryan, a 32-year-old man, and we've been together for 6 years. Our relationship has always been strong, with the usual ups and downs every couple experiences. We've grown through our challenges and shared a loving bond, until about 8 months ago, when my sister, Star, a 28-year-old woman, moved back to our hometown. Star had lived in Florida since she turned 18, but when her long-term boyfriend dumped her and moved to another city, she found herself destitute. The details of their breakup remain mostly a mystery. When she returned, she told us he had been cheating with men. I didn't know him well. She only brought him home for Christmas for 3 or 4 days, and I only met him a handful of times over their 5-year relationship. I even tried to contact him once, but he blocked me, so I let it go. After returning, Star moved in with our parents, Gina, 55, and Jimmy, 56. During her first month, she struggled to find work. I suggested that Ryan might be able to help her out, given his position at his company. He did, and soon she landed a job in his department, in her own field. For some context, my sister and I have never been very close. To our mom, she's always been the golden child, while my dad usually backs our mom up. It wasn't obvious at first, just little things over the years. For example, when we turned 16, I got an 8-year-old Dodge Neon, but Star received a 2-year-old Mitsubishi Eclipse. Her dance practice outfits and competition expenses cost thousands of dollars, sometimes even requiring trips 6 or more hours away. Meanwhile, when I needed $50 for a volleyball or basketball camp at a local college, they handed it over as if I were asking for my own arena. What really hurt was when I was 17 and after being 15 minutes late from a night out, they took my car for a whole month. Yet, when Star once came home 2 hours late, smelling of pot, they barely scolded her. I wasn't too upset when she left for college and chose to stay in Florida. At first, I was happy to see her around more often. It felt like she was trying to build a closer bond with me. But soon I began noticing that she and Ryan were becoming unusually familiar. They'd chat about nearly everything for long stretches, share private jokes, and if I tried to join in, they'd brush me off with, just work stuff. When I asked Ryan about it, he said they had a lot in common and were collaborating on several projects. The first real red flag came about a month later. Star would be at our house when I returned from work. Ryan and I have different schedules. He works a typical 8 to 4:30 day, while I'm on the 10 to 7 shift. It became common for her to be there. When I questioned it, he said they had work-related things to finish. 2 months ago, something happened that made me doubt my sanity. Every day, I make the bed before leaving for work, ensuring that the open side of the pillowcase faces the edge of the bed. One day, Star joined us for dinner at my parents' house. When we got into bed later, I noticed 2 pillows had their cases on, but the middle one was missing its cover. I asked Ryan if he'd been in bed, and although he looked a bit shaken, he said no. He insisted I must have been mistaken since no one else was in the bed. Still, I checked his phone and laptop without him knowing and found nothing incriminating. But then I thought, they work together 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and then hang out after work. Why would they need to text each other if everything was fine? I began to feel like I was losing my mind. Then, 2 weeks ago, my parents invited us over for dinner. Things were fine until I saw Ryan casually walking by and Star lightly grabbing his arm. He turned to her, and she whispered something while they pressed their foreheads together for a split second. Ryan immediately stiffened and kept walking, and Star just smiled at me before returning to what she was doing. I know all these are red flags, but I didn't want to believe it. I've loved Ryan since I was 21, and I had even planned a weekend getaway to the city to talk about these issues. I hoped with all my heart that nothing was as it seemed. During our getaway, our Friday night was lovely, drinks, dancing, intimacy. But the next day, with more plans lined up, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I asked him directly if he was having an affair with Star. With tears in his eyes, he admitted it. My heart shattered. I pressed him, asking why, and he apologized, saying he never meant for things to get this far. He admitted that they just clicked, and before he knew it, they'd been kissing and more. I then asked if he'd been sleeping with her in our bed before I got home from work. He turned his head away in shame. I left immediately with only my purse, drove home alone, and later, after he got an Uber to bring my other belongings, he tried apologizing. I barely looked at him through my tears as he packed a bag and left for a hotel the next day. I informed my parents, who, although sorry about what happened, didn't really stand by me. They mentioned that Star had left the house the night before and might not return for several days, probably to stay with Ryan. That was 3 months ago. Our divorce is nearly finalized now. Ryan quickly found a new apartment and Star moved in with him. I'm only communicating with him about our divorce matters. Initially, he even suggested I could keep the house and the savings, but I knew that was guilt talking. A few days later, he changed his mind, saying we'd have to split the house, likely because of Star's influence. I'd already moved everything from the savings to a new account, so that wasn't a fight point. Just like that, 9 years of my life felt shattered. Ryan doesn't understand what he's gotten himself into. Star is a narcissist who will eventually discard him. Throughout all of this, Star's cruelty has been relentless. A few days after I found out, she tagged me in a Facebook post, a selfie of her and Ryan, with him kissing her on the cheek from behind. The caption read, "Feeling loved." It was disgusting. I immediately logged out and deleted the app from my phone. About an hour later, she texted me, apologizing for the tag, saying she didn't mean any harm and hoped we could still be close. She even added, "You'll meet your soulmate someday too." I blocked her everywhere. My parents haven't fared any better. They initially acted sympathetic when I said I was cutting off contact with Star and Ryan. My mother said, "I'm sorry this happened, but your sister deserves to be happy too. You'll meet someone and then we can move past this." I got really upset and told her exactly what Star had tagged me with. My mother dismissed it by saying, "Well, you shouldn't be on that stuff anyway." My father said nothing except agreeing with her, then walked out of the room. I've now decided to go full no contact with them as well. I plan to sell the house soon and move to another state. I haven't told any of them where or when, I'm just done with them. I honestly wish them all the worst. Update. Hi, everyone. I know it's been 4 years since my last update, but a major situation changed my life. I'm now recently engaged. It took a lot of therapy to rebuild myself, and once I settled here in Minnesota, I tried dating again. I went on one decent first date, and that's when I discovered just how unbearable he could be. I swore off men forever, and soon after, I started therapy to deal with the deep wounds from my husband's and sister's betrayal, as well as my parents' abandonment. It was a rough year, but then I met James, a 37-year-old man. Fun fact, he shares his first name with my dad, LOL. James is amazing. He's a chef, and he and his fraternal twin brother Jack own a very successful restaurant and bar. I'm really excited to build a future with him. Enough about me. Let me tell you about the nerve of my family. About 9 months after I left them, when I was completely out of the picture and had only told a few close friends and cousins my new address, I returned home one day to find a wedding invitation in the mail. It was for Ryan and Star, complete with a tacky photo of them embracing in a sunflower field. There was also a letter from my parents that basically said, "Forgive us, forget the past, we know things weren't great, but we're family and families work through their problems." They even claimed that Star wanted me to be a bridesmaid, just like she was for me. What the actual F? That letter reopened old wounds, and my therapist's schedule exploded at the time. Now, I look back and laugh, though it still stings a bit. I didn't reply. I only found out which part of my extended family had leaked my address and cut them off. Then came the latest drama. Last week, Ryan, of all people, showed up at my apartment. James and I aren't living together yet, though that's about to change. Ryan looked surprisingly sharp, like he'd made an effort, and said, "I just want to talk. I'm so sorry for what I did. Star and I are divorcing. I found out she was unfaithful throughout our entire marriage. I don't expect you to take me back, but we should talk for closure's sake." I did a double take. He'd really lost his mind. I looked him straight in the eye and said, "No, I'm not giving you closure. You made your own bed. Did you really think that Golden Hoe of hers, who's had more visitors than a Holiday Inn, was suddenly going to put up a no vacancy sign just because you put a ring on it? You're even dumber than I thought. I forgive nothing and want nothing from you. I'm better off without you. Now, go to hell." I then turned, locked my door, and called my landlady, the kindest old lady in the world, who I've grown close to over these 4 years, and who knows all about my past. Ryan lingered in the hallway until her 2 nephews, who helped maintain the building, arrived and told him he wasn't welcome and was officially banned. They even warned him that if he came back, the police would be called for trespassing. I hoped that would be the end, but it wasn't. My 9 to 5 job is pretty chill now, and I often drop by the restaurant James manages. I don't get in the way, I just enjoy the few moments I have there. I've become good friends with a lot of the staff, including many of James and Jack's family, creating the family atmosphere I'd always wanted. One slow Tuesday night, Ryan walked in and sat at my table. James noticed immediately and came over to check on me, recognizing Ryan from photos I'd shown him. Ryan extended his hand to James, who glanced at it and then asked, "Do you want me to kick him out?" I replied, "Not yet, I have a couple of questions." Ryan perked up like he was winning, so I asked him, "Tell me what really happened between you and Star." Pure morbid curiosity, I admit. He explained that she was involved with at least 2 married men, old habits die hard, I guess, and claimed it was a tough time for him. I rolled my eyes and interrupted, "You're not that clueless. Did you protect yourself, or did she end up with half your stuff?" Ryan smugly replied that he stuck it out for almost another year so he could save up and sell some assets, and in the end, she only got a fraction of what she might have had. When I asked, "So what happened to her then?" Ryan said, "She had to move back in with your parents." I couldn't help but say again. Satisfied, I added, "Yes, thank you. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. You can leave now." James reiterated, "You heard her, no closure." I cut him off, no forgiveness, no closure. I just needed to know my loser sister is back living at home. Now, get out. James pointed to the door and Ryan, seeing the glares from the bartender and waitstaff, quickly left while muttering something about cops and trespassing. After he left, nearly everyone around checked on me. It was both heartwarming and a little embarrassing. My future in-laws, who I absolutely adore, even called to insist I stay with James for a few days for safety. It was incredibly sweet. I've never had a family care for me like that. I haven't heard from Ryan since, and I hope I never do. Hey everyone, I didn't expect to have another update, but here it is. I'm now a 41-year-old mother of 2 boys, one 6 years old and one 2. James and I are doing great. I work part-time as an office manager for our restaurants, and James' cousin bought into the business, so we opened a second location 3 years ago. It's more work, but with 3 of us involved, we're successful and each gets a bit of personal time. It wasn't ideal, but I'm pretty sure I got pregnant while staying with James, especially after his parents insisted I do so following my last breakup. They now joke they always wanted to be grandparents, and that it was all part of their plan. After Ryan tracked me down last time, I figured it was only a matter of time before my parents or sister tried to reappear. They didn't show up immediately. I felt supported and rejoined social media. I kept no contact with most of my family, including extended relatives, but I knew they'd eventually find me if they wanted. It wasn't until after our first child was born that I received my first message, a half-hearted apology from my mom, mentioning forgiveness and asking about her grandson. I almost blocked her, but when she implied that my child was her grandchild, I found that insulting and replied, "You do not have any grandchildren. I'm not your daughter, and my kids aren't yours either. If you want grandchildren, you should encourage Star to get out there and do what she does best." At that point, I blocked her. She made new accounts and kept trying to contact me, but I simply declined or deleted every request. Then came the recent drama. I was bombarded with messages, some full of sob stories about missing out on the grandkids' lives and wanting to make amends. I really didn't care. I had no intention of letting any of you back into my life. That's when the shocking twist happened. Star began reaching out to me. She barely said a word except that she desperately wanted to talk. After about 3 weeks, I finally agreed to a Zoom meeting, just me, no kids. Right off the bat, they kept asking to see the kids, but I was firm. It wasn't happening. The kids already had 3 grandparents, James's mom, dad, and grandma, and that was it. I started to suspect this was really about something else. Star looked awful, and my parents seemed old and worn out. As we talked, they began apologizing for everything that had happened. Even Star admitted she was wrong and said she wished she could have her sister back, a laughable idea. Then Mom launched into her usual spiel about family and looking out for one another. When she was done, I simply said, "Is that all you've got?" "I'm leaving." They yelled for me to wait, and that's when the facade dropped. The real reason came out. Apparently, Star has been struggling with health issues for years, her kidneys are failing, and she needs a transplant. That's why they were so persistent. A family member is most likely a good match. I asked bluntly, "Is this why you're calling me? You want me to save her after everything she's done?" My husband wasn't enough, and now she wants a piece of me. My mother snapped, "Stop acting like this." That was a long time ago. Then, choking up and crying, she continued, "I get it. You hate us. But she's going to die if she doesn't get a transplant soon. Is that what you really want? I know you think she wronged you in the worst way, but please, just this once, can we set that aside?" I fell silent, waiting to see if they had more to say. Eventually, Dad started, "Look, we're sorry for all that happened, but we're in deep trouble. Her medical bills are piling up, she can't work, and your mom and I are getting older with our own issues. We need you to come back to Missouri and see if you're a match. We could also really use some help, or we might lose the house. In other words, we need your kidney and your money." I replied, "Don't put it like that." Star then pleaded, "Please, just come home. I need my big sister, I don't want to die. Just come and see if you're a match. If you're not, we'll never contact you again." I told them I needed time to think and do some research, promising to get back to them tomorrow. I ended the call and spoke with my husband, who told me he supported me 100%, no matter what. He even asked if we should all travel as a family or if just he should come, but I said no to both. I was going on my own. I let my former family know that I'd get my lab results here in Minnesota, and if I was a match, I'd come to talk. About a week later, the results came in, and it turned out Star and I were a perfect match. I agreed to come back to St. Charles. By the time I arrived, Star's condition had worsened, and she had to be admitted to the hospital. This conveniently got everyone off my back about meeting for dinner since I had no interest in any socializing with you, especially as my parents kept asking if I'd help with your financial issues. They managed to stabilize Star, and I met with the doctors who would perform the transplant. They went over everything with me, and I insisted that everyone be part of the conversation. We all gathered in Star's room, with my parents already there. The doctor explained that Star might only have about 6 months without a transplant. He detailed the process and emphasized how perfect a match I was, that finding a better donor was nearly impossible, and that the sooner we scheduled surgery, the better. Then I walked over to Star, took her hand, and looked into her big brown eyes. I said, "Did you hear that? I'm a perfect match. Essentially, I'm the only person who can save you, and I'm not going to." I continued, "You are the most vile, narcissistic piece of gutter trash I've ever known. I only came here so you'd know that the one person who could keep you alive is the person you hurt the most. Now you're paying for that with your life. You're going to die, and you should make peace with that." Star burst into tears, and my parents turned to me. The doctor and nurse stood there in complete shock. I looked at my parents and said, "Don't even talk to me, and don't you ever ask me for anything again. The only money I'll ever spend on you is for your funeral, on the condition that you are cremated and your ashes given to me, so I can deposit your remains in the dirtiest John I can find." With that, I walked out of the room and never looked back. I'm back home now, my real home, surrounded by my true family, and I couldn't be happier. After I walked out that hospital door, I carried with me not just a storm of rage, but also the heavy burden of a past that wouldn't let go. Over the following weeks in Minnesota, I began to feel that the anger I clung to was slowly poisoning every part of me, even the parts that still longed for genuine connection. I started attending therapy sessions and support groups, where I learned that while my pain was real, forgiveness, if not for them, was for me. In those quiet hours, I began to see that the hatred that fueled me was also a barrier to my own healing. I wasn't doing anyone any favors by holding on to the bitterness. It was time to take control of my own future. Meanwhile, back in Missouri, things took a different turn. Star's condition worsened, and as the family scrambled to find another donor, the reality of our fractured bonds hit everyone hard. In a twist of fate, another donor was eventually found for Star. The transplant went ahead, and though the scars remained, the crisis subsided. I never went back, not because I was forced away, but because I finally understood that I deserved a life free of toxic expectations and false obligations. Slowly, I rebuilt my world here in Minnesota with people who truly mattered. I reconnected with friends who embraced my authenticity and began to rebuild a sense of family that wasn't defined by past grievances. I learned that healing didn't necessarily mean forgetting. It meant accepting the lessons from my past and using them to create a future where my well-being came first. In the end, I realized that I had the power to choose my own path. I chose to let go of the old resentments, to stop letting bitterness dictate my choices, and to build a life centered on genuine care and honesty. Though I never fully mended what was broken with my former family, I found peace in knowing that I had taken back control of my life, and that was a resolution I could live with.